The following clip you're about to watch comes from a family who brought home a toy from Grandma's house. Brand new, still in the packaging, with fresh batteries they put in themselves since none were included. And then it started moving on its own. To get ahead of the obvious explanation, they do something smart. They place the remote control on the floor beside the toy, in full view of the camera, so there is no question about whether anyone's hands are on it. Take a look.
Strange situation. This little thing, this little doll, seems to be moving on its own. The remote for it right here, you have to press the button for it to go forward or backwards. But earlier, it was just moving a little bit forward or a little bit backwards on its own. Yeah, weird. Yeah, the remote's right there. Unless it's like a glitch or something?
I don't know. I'm going to put the remote control right here. See? Nobody touch it. See?
Huh. This is weird. What could be causing that?
I don't know. And this is
New toy, new batteries, remote on the floor, and yet there it is. What makes this one particularly interesting is where the toy came from, Grandma's house. And that detail, as innocent as it sounds, opens a door that a lot of people in the comments walked straight through. Objects that pass through older homes, that sit in spaces with long histories and then get handed down, carry with them everything that space has absorbed over the years. Not the object itself necessarily, but the energy it moved through, the hands that held it, the rooms it sat in. In many paranormal traditions, the idea of an object arriving in a new home and bringing something along with it is not just possible, but considered one of the more common ways activity begins in previously quiet spaces. A brand new toy that's never been used shouldn't have a history, but the house it came from might. Whatever is making that toy move has been in the family longer than the toy has. And the question worth sitting with is whether Grandma's house was as quiet as everyone thought it was. What do you think about this one? This next clip comes from a shop owner who was lying at home reviewing her security camera footage late at night. And what she saw on that playback was not what she was expecting. Her apprentice had stayed back to close up after a late customer, and that's when things started going sideways. The door simply wouldn't close. She kept trying, pulling it shut repeatedly, and it wouldn't catch, until the light inside the shop turned on by itself. At that point, the apprentice did something that honestly takes a certain kind of nerve. She walked back in, switched the light off, and said out loud, "Let me go home, don't mess with me." And just like that, she was able to lock the door and leave. But when the owner reviewed the footage from home, she noticed something her apprentice never saw. After she left, the lights came back on. Also, 2 of the machines inside the shop switched themselves on. Whatever was in that shop that night listened when she asked to be left alone, waited for her to go. And then, the moment she was gone, made itself completely at home. It let her leave, but it clearly had no intention of leaving itself. And that raises the question of what exactly she was sharing that shop with every single night before this one. I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip was posted by a TikTok content creator who had been dealing with strange activity in his home for several days before this moment. Enough that when he heard a sound coming from his living room in the middle of the night, his first instinct wasn't to just investigate, it was to grab his phone and start recording. Because at this point, he already knew that whatever was happening in that apartment was worth documenting. All the windows in the living room are closed. There is no airflow, no fan running, nothing that could account for what happens next.
Bueno, estoy grabando este video porque estoy tratando de dormir, pero acabo de escuchar un golpe duro por allá en la sala, entonces decidí grabar porque hace días que se viene presentando cosas extrañas en el apartamento. Son las 4:13 minutos de la tarde, entonces me parece muy extraño que hasta ahora están sucediendo como cosas raras. Entonces, comedor. Miren, es en el comedor. Tengo las ventanas cerradas, miren. No, esto viene sucediendo hace como una semana ya. Pues la verdad se me hace muy extraño. Se me hace muy extraño que esté pasando cosas así. No lo puedo creer. No lo puedo creer, miren. ¿Qué está pasando? ¿Qué está pasando, Dios? Llevo una semana en estas. Vieron que se movió. Esto viene sucediendo hace una semana, hace 10 días, sino que no he querido grabar, pero ya las cosas se tornan bastante serias. Ya está pasando muy seguido, entonces me preocupa, pero ¿sí vieron cómo se movió eso? ¿Escucharon? Hay un golpe raro.
Those chimes didn't move in a gentle sway, not the kind of subtle drift you might blame on a passing vibration or a change in air pressure. A deliberate, significant movement, the kind that feels less like something drifting through and more like something walking through and catching it on the way past. Almost like whatever was moving through that living room didn't see it coming, or simply didn't care enough to go around it. But whatever was moving through that living room that night, this was apparently just the beginning. A few days later, it happened again. Different room, different hour. Same unmistakable feeling that something in that apartment was making itself known. He was watching television when he heard music coming from the other room, so of course he grabbed his camera again and walked toward the sound. The room was empty, but the keyboard was on. Now a keyboard turning itself on is already difficult to explain away. But what happens next is what takes this clip to a different level entirely. Have a watch.
Bueno, voy a grabar este video porque me pareció escuchar el piano mío. Ahí se escuchó. Señor bendito. Ojalá el celular alcance a tomar ese audio porque está en la otra habitación. Pero todo es muy extraño porque yo no he tocado ese piano hoy. ¿Qué pasa, Señor? ¿Qué pasa, Dios? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué es lo que hay aquí, Dios? No lo puedo creer, Dios mío bendito. Miren, apagan el televisor. Apagaron el televisor.
The sound starts again before he's even fully turned around. He looks back and the keyboard is on again, as if whatever turned it on the first time had simply waited for him to finish and then went right back to what it was doing. Unbothered, unhurried, completely indifferent to the fact that he was standing right there. That indifference is the detail that unsettles people most about this clip. A presence that stops when you enter a room and starts again the moment you turn away suggests something that is aware of him, tracking his movements and choosing when to be heard. Not hiding exactly, but deciding. And something that turns a keyboard back on 30 seconds after you switch it off has made a very deliberate decision to keep playing. But nothing in those first few days could have prepared him for what happened at 3:25 in the morning. The wind chime moving in a closed room was unnerving. The keyboard turning itself back on while he stood there watching was harder to explain. But this was the moment where whatever had been making itself known in that apartment stopped feeling like a presence and started feeling like a confrontation. You can hear it in his breathing before he even gets to the bathroom. That specific, involuntary heaviness that takes over when the body understands something the mind is still trying to process. And underneath the breathing, you can hear him pray clearly, "God help me."
Otra vez se escuchan golpes en la sala. Son las 3:25. Se escuchan golpes en la sala, se escuchan cosas. No he podido dormir. Van a ser casi las 4 de la mañana. Dios mío, ayúdame, Dios mío. Señor bendito. Abre la puerta. Cierra la puerta del baño. ¿Quién está ahí? Dios, ¿qué es eso, Dios? Ayúdame, Dios, ayúdame. Dios mío. ¿Quién está ahí? Ay, Dios. La cortina se movió. Esa cortina se movió. Oh, Dios, Dios. Dios mío, ¿qué fue eso? ¿Qué fue eso, Dios? Dios Todopoderoso, ayúdame. Ay, Dios.
He asks if anyone is there and something answers. That moment, the question and what follows it, is the kind of thing that changes a person's relationship with their own home permanently. Because up until you ask that question and something responds, there is always a part of you that can maintain the possibility that nothing is really there, that it's the building settling, the wind, a coincidence of timing. The moment something responds to your voice in a room that should be empty, that possibility closes. He's been documenting since the sound started. And now, at 3:25 in the morning, standing in his bathroom doorway with his phone shaking in his hand, asking God for help, whatever has been in that apartment with him has finally decided to answer back directly. And even after everything that had already happened inside that apartment, he was about to find out that whatever this was, it wasn't confined to his walls, because the next time he encountered it, he was outside.
González me copia.
Diga, le copio.
Enfocate la cámara 6. Uno de los columpios está moviendo.
Cámara 6 ya. No, comando, no se puede ver bien, está nublado.
El otro está totalmente quieto, pero ese se está moviendo solo.
¿Cuál de los tres?
Hay uno que está bailando solo, weón.
¿En serio?
Afirma, hay alguien ahí en ese columpio, weón.
Uy, quieto, no digas cosas aparte.
Two swings in the compound yard, one completely still and the other moving the way a swing moves when someone is sitting in it, starting slow, finding its rhythm, building into the kind of steady, deliberate arc that doesn't happen by itself and doesn't happen from wind. Wind moves both swings. Whatever was sitting in that one had chosen a seat. 4 incidents across several days. A wind chime in a sealed room, a keyboard that refused to stay off, a bathroom door, and a curtain that responded to a direct question at 3 in the morning. And now, a swing carrying the weight of something unseen in the open air of a shared compound. What builds across these 4 clips is a picture of something that isn't randomly active. It's present, consistently, deliberately, across different rooms and now different spaces entirely. The pattern of it suggests something that has attached itself specifically to him rather than to the apartment. A presence that follows rather than haunts, that moves with him from room to room and apparently out into the yard when he goes there too. In many spiritual traditions, this kind of attachment is considered among the most serious classifications of paranormal activity. Not a residual energy, not a territorial presence tied to a building, but something personal. Something that found him, decided to stay close, and has been escalating its attempts to make that known ever since the wind chime first moved. For this man, every room in that apartment, and apparently every corner of that compound, now carries the same question. Is he ever actually alone? This next clip comes from someone who has been dealing with consistent activity in their kitchen ever since moving into their house. And the list of experiences they've documented is the kind that builds slowly and then all at once. Things being slammed in the kitchen with no one near them. Footsteps, a persistent feeling of being watched in the walkway. And then one afternoon, a glass moved itself off the counter and shattered across the kitchen floor while they were downstairs. That was the moment it stopped feeling like background noise and started feeling like something with intentions. But the Alexa situation is what really paints the picture. For weeks, it would go off after midnight, consistently between 2 and 3 in the morning, responding to requests nobody was making, being asked to do things while the house was sleeping. And then one night, it woke them up at full volume, playing the sound of a crackling campfire. The specific, deliberate sound of fire blasting through a speaker in the middle of the night in a dark kitchen. That was enough. The Alexa got moved to the bedroom, and from that moment on, it never acted up again. Whatever was interacting with it was specifically interested in the kitchen. Then the night before, their parents were due to visit from out of state, the activity peaked. The Alexa went off 6 times between 1 a.m. and 5:30 in the morning. When they went to check on the first alert, they saw the cord being lifted into the air and set back down the moment they walked in, almost like whatever was holding it heard them coming. They set up a camera, and that's when this was captured.
Travel will be...
Were you just messing with the screen?
to start in Minnesota.
So we've got a silver medal now.
Now the road itself has the chance
It just seems like the time is right.
to propel the whole sport forward.
We thought, let's ride the Olympic.
An orb, moving with a trail running from the ceiling all the way down to the floor, facing the living room from the kitchen. You have to really focus to see it. Slow, deliberate, unlike anything else in hours of footage from that same camera. And then the Alexa wake-up calls, caught on film, going off in a kitchen that had no one in it. What makes this case particularly interesting to paranormal researchers is the behavioral pattern around the parents' visit. 4 days of complete silence while they were in the house, not a single incident, and then the strong suspicion that the moment they leave, it will start again. That kind of selective activity points towards something with a level of social awareness that most people find deeply uncomfortable to consider. A presence that reads the energy of a space, responds to who is and isn't in it, and adjusts its behavior accordingly. It wasn't performing for the parents, it was waiting for them to leave. The campfire sounds at full volume in the middle of the night are the detail that lingers longest. Because of everything a presence could choose to do with a smart speaker, the sound of fire is a very specific choice. Whether that means something about what happened in that kitchen before this family moved in, nobody has been able to say. But what do you think?